Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we're doing a review of the 455's Star Trek documentary, Chaos on the Bridge, which features especially the first two seasons of Star Trek The Next Generation. It's an incredible documentary, and right now with us, we have executive producer David Zappone joining us. We also have the assistant to the EP and head writer, Lolita Fatjo, joining us.
Hello.
Of the series, Ryan, of TNG, not of Chaos, right?
Very true. So Dave Zappone, executive producer of 455 Films, which created this and many other documentaries like the upcoming Voyager documentary, What We Left Behind, The Captains and the Captain's Close-Ups, For the Love of Spock.
We can announce Lolita, why don't you talk about what we're doing now?
Yes, we're actually doing a documentary now on the wonderful, famous Michael. I'm sorry, you guys. The doorbell. Can I pause it? Can I hit?
Yeah, sure.
It's going to get a plug-in for crying out loud. You edit this, right, Ryan?
Yeah, now.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, no.
I know.
Yeah,
we'll get into it.
I'm just so jealous that you guys got to see it for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at the right time too, I think. Actually,
yeah. So definitely for you guys.
For us, for me, it's the right time because of the timing of it. I'm glad that Ryan suggested this because it seems to be perfectly placed for where we are and where we're trying to go. And that's really where I'm going to start, getting into the questions, because what a great idea and just great execution,
Yeah, well, it was my idea 100%, but Bill, to his credit, boy, once he, I'll save it.
Yeah.
We'll save it, but another,
he dove into it, Cirroc. There was no BS there.
Tell.
Like when he spoke to Avery, when he has something he's interested in.
He's a very good conversationalist. He just knows how to extract stuff out of people. People let their guard down a little bit. He asks very direct questions. I mean, he should have his own podcast.
Yeah,
I'd like to watch his podcast.
Like he has a free minute.
Yeah, really.
As if he needs to do anything else. But but he's just naturally gifted at interviewing people and asking questions and talking. So that was another thing that just popped out.
You want to jump in, Ryan?
Yeah. Well, let's get back to. I mean, since we're given stuff that's great for the recording, so anyway, we'll jump back in, and Lolita, you can just say what you're going to say about the documentary.
And so 455, we're currently in production right now on a documentary about the great Michael Westmore, famous makeup man, who of course worked on Star Trek for 17, 18 years. But his whole family history is amazing. Goes back a century in Hollywood. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, there was a time in Hollywood where every major studio makeup department was run by a Westmore.
Right.
And I can leak one name. We've already got Sylvester Stallone in it.
Wow. Really?
Yeah, because Michael did Rocky and Rambo.
Yeah.
Well, we'll definitely have to cover that sometime soon as well. Yeah. So let's just get into Chaos on the Bridge. For Cirroc and myself, it's perfect timing because we just finished season 2 of Star Trek The Next Generation. So we're jumping into this. And we've had so many questions about why did this happen? Why was this out of order? What's up with the writing? Everything's so weird and confusing. This documentary explains it. And Dave, can you explain to us where the genesis of this idea came from?
Well, the genesis was Bill and I had such a tremendous working relationship dating back to the Captains. So that started in 2010. So we do the Captains. I see, wow, Shatner is an incredible interview. And then we jump to Get a Life about the Star Trek conventions. Then we did 6 episodes spin-off of the Captains, including an hour on just Christopher Plummer and all the individual captains. So Bill and I had done a lot. And so I said, I was such a fan of Next Generation. Now he knows them and he had seen it, but he certainly was not a fan. And I just pitched it once in his office. He said, "No, I've done enough Star Trek, forget it." And with Bill, I know you just don't give up. And then I got him in a really good mood when he was doing a horse competition at the Equestrian Center. I pitched it again without a hesitation. He said, "Yeah, let's do it." And the whole concept was exactly what I think you guys have probably seen. Why the heck was the show so uneven the first 2 seasons, and then once you hit 3, you're off? So that was always our thesis. We wanted to answer that question, and we never intended, which we didn't, to go past season 3.
Well, first of all, I want to commend you because I think you did a great job of giving us a real overall view of what was happening from so many different angles and perspectives. You got the studio executives on one side, you've got the creative people on the other side, and really just so many people from Rick Berman, Maurice Hurley, to John Pike, and all of these people that gave some great insight. And I thought DC Fontana, everybody really gave us some exceptional interview and insight into those first 2 seasons. And now, having watched those first 2 seasons, it was chaotic. I mean, you just see that,
Totally.
Denise Crosby just, boom, she's gone all of a sudden. Then they bring in a new doctor, and then, their episodes don't seem to have continuity. There's some kind of, issues there where you're like, well, where did this come from? And so there's a lot of things that are actually visible on screen when you're watching this stuff. Why is the second season 22 episodes, for example, as opposed to the 26 that the first season was? So there were so many things and questions that I believe you answered for the audience. But I want to just go a little bit further into the first question, which was convincing William Shatner, because there was a little moment in this documentary where Ira asked William Shatner, like, he says, well, honestly, what did you think about it when you first heard that they were going to do this new Star Trek show? And I thought that was very telling, because he felt a certain type of way about it. I think he used the word twinged. I twinged.
Yeah.
And and I think that would be anybody's response when they hear about something that they created. It's their baby, and then they're not part of the reboot of it. So was there some conversation there about his original twinging that you kind of felt like was a reason why he didn't want to do it initially?
No, I think it was really more that he really was a little burned out on Star Trek. And I think he was afraid that he just didn't know enough about the series. But Bill being Bill, once he dives into a topic, he is off. And I think where it really turned was, I think it was with John Pike, where Bill comes to the conclusion that it's a poker game, that poker is being played, and everybody is jockeying for power. And then we had our theme. And Cirroc, once he hit, and that's not me telling him, that's him. And then we ended up developing a whole, even artistic motif and musical motif around that game of poker that was constantly being played. So, I think the other thing that helped, our first round of interviews are the ones you see at JPL, Jet Propulsion Labs, where you could see all the Gene Roddenberry on the screens. They actually let us film in Mission Control for that. And Maury Hurley was the first interview. So Bill loves Maury because Maury produced Lolita, what was Tech War? Didn't Bill do a show? You might not remember.
Yeah,
anyway,
I can't think of the name, but they
worked together, so that he was like pulled in right away from Maury. And what I felt really good is then it rekindled their friendship. They hadn't seen each other in 20 years. And Maury started coming to Monday Night Football and watching, and they became friends again. And Lolita, you'll get a kick out of this. Maury was like, how tall was Maury? He had to be 6'2" when I knew him. And he would literally back me into the refrigerator at Bill's kitchen and get right in my face and say, how's the edit going? Where are you? The flop sweat, when that doesn't often happen to me, but more, and he wasn't trying to be mean. He was just an intimidating guy.
Yes, very much. But also he had the sweetest heart as well.
Mhm.
Just a really nice man, but tough.
Yeah,
Well,
I was
Lolita-
really happy to see a face on the name, because I so much involved with all of this stuff, and we always see Maurice Hurley's name, and I was just really happy to kind of get a sense of his personality and you know, his voice, actually, to hear how he thought and how he rationalized things. I thought that was another insight there. I'm sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
We were going to call the film, but the network wouldn't let us. We financed this through Canadian funding and HBO Canada. Bill wanted to call the whole film Wacky Doodle, which is what Maury calls the situation in the writer's room.
And
so
the songs.
Yeah, and then the ending song, Steve Rankin, by the way, who you guys probably know, played on that.
Yeah, I noticed that. That was really interesting. And Lolita, Cirroc and I are watching this documentary with fresh eyes. We've never seen it before. Dave has just rewatched the documentary. He has seen it before, I'm guessing, since he produced the thing. You are watching it for the first time, and you've got that unique point of view of you lived it.
I did.
What did this feel like from somebody that actually lived behind the scenes and saw some of the bedlam? You experienced other bedlam that was not covered. What was just the overall experience of watching this?
Well, first of all, I thought I had seen it, and I don't think I ever saw it in full. And I was mesmerized last night. I wanted to watch it again. And so I watched it the first time, and then I fast forwarded and watched other pieces a second or third time. It just made me feel so great to go back that many years and see those people, especially Maurice Hurley and a lot of them. And because I was hired during the chaos of going from that first season to the second season, coming out of the writer's strike and going into production. And it was crazy. And the whole Leonard Maislich thing was
I was going to ask you, did you see this man?
Oh, absolutely. Creeping around all the time. And, we have to stay sometimes late at night because of scripts that were always late, as usual. And he would always be like there creeping around. And I found it very interesting. Dave, I remember you saying you could never find a picture of him. We never saw
I actually have a story on that. We did find one photo, and I contacted his son, who's an attorney, and he said to Bill and I called him. I forget his first name. And he said, yes, you can use the picture as long as there is nothing negative about my father in the film. So Bill and I said, well, the picture.
Got that. Really
all right.
But there really aren't any pictures. And Eddie Milkis either we couldn't, which was surprising. Because Eddie was in post-production going back to like Odd Couple and Happy Days. But we could not find a picture of Eddie Milkis.
Yeah, but for me, it was really a trip down memory lane, first of all.
Yeah.
And, Gene was chaotic and he was wackadoodle and everything, but his heart, again, was just in such a great place most of the time. So for me, it was a really great trip down memory lane, but every single thing that everybody said was true. That place was a nut house. I mean, and I could tell stories, but that'll take time.
Well, I wanted you to attest to some of this stuff, because they talked about having scripts and production meetings and ready to go. And then like, boom, 3 or 4 days before you're about to shoot, he rips up the whole thing, says start from scratch. So that must be like a crazy. And
the revolving door, that billboard that Ron Moore had in his toilet, in his bathroom, that thing was fantastic, because there was probably a good 30 people that went through that door in those first 2 years. It was crazy. It was crazy. And the writing staff was not cohesive at all. We had Bert Armus there, the skin of evil, who killed Tasha Yar. Bert was a cop. Kojak was based on Bert Armus. The reason Bert was brought in was because he and Maury Hurley had this long history of working together on cop shows. Bert didn't really belong there, but he was talented enough. And just all these people coming and going. And I saw that on one of the pictures, that gal named Sherry Goodhart's was on staff with Ira and Ron and Snodgrass. I haven't thought of her in years. I wonder what happened to her. But she was there during that chaos and probably one of those revolving doors out. But yeah, it was until Michael Piller and Jerry Taylor came, it was definitely what you captured in this film. Absolutely.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
I thought it was riveting. I really enjoyed every moment of this documentary, David. So I want to congratulate you on just putting together. And also, when you're doing something like this, and you get these interviews, and Shatner says, "Oh, that's like poker," and he kind of asks Pike about it, John Pike about, "Hey, you were playing poker in that situation." Then you go back and you start to come up with the idea of doing the animation and kind of visualizing these things. So the story, you don't know what you're going to get until you get it, and then you kind of reverse on that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's true with any documentary. All you can have is your thesis, your what you think your through line will be. I mean, again, look at what happened when we went for the captains to Avery's. Would you in a million years think Bill Shatner and Avery Brooks would be sitting and singing at a piano? No way. No way. So you can't predict that. But one interesting thing I'll tell you, which I think I've revealed before, is Patrick Stewart turned us down initially. He did not want to do the film. He politely said to Bill, "I'm just not interested." And then Bill and I were in New York City, and Patrick was appearing on Broadway in New York City. We had gone to see like Howard Stern or something. And he called Patrick again and told Patrick what John Pike said about it.
Nice.
The whole story where he showed up at the commissary in uniform, and Patrick said, "All right, that's it. I do want to rebut. And I'll give you 5 minutes." And so Bill couldn't do it, so I had to do it. So I did that interview. Patrick and I, we were friendly from the captains. He said, "I could give you 5 minutes, David. Ian McKellen and I are about to open next door on Broadway." It's like 6:05. We talked for 45 minutes, and I had to stop him and said, "Patrick, you're going to miss your curtain." And he's such a gentleman. He brought me over to the box office and got me tickets for the show.
Wow.
That's Patrick. But Joe can speak more when we speak with Joe, the editor. So we had basically the film put together. And at the 11th hour, we get this great Patrick Stewart interview. So everything changes.
Yeah, that's the beauty of documentaries, though. I've learned over the last few years, which I knew nothing about, obviously, until Dave graciously brought me on board. But yeah, it's fascinating. You just don't know what you're going to get from somebody in a sitting.
They take a life of their own.
Absolutely.
You follow
Patrick answered every question I had. Mm-hmm. And I never looked at my list. We just connected.
Dave, was there...
Wow. Go ahead, Ryan.
I was just going to say, Dave, was there one that got away? I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of people you would have liked to have interviewed, but that you couldn't. But is there one or maybe two that, above all, you said, "I just wish I could have explored that angle a little bit more with this particular person"?
Ironically, Lucy Salhaney, who was the genius, the woman that came up with the idea at Paramount to do the syndication, we couldn't find her, but we found her for Voyager, and she's in Voyager. It would have been great to get like a little more of Dorn and Spiner, but they really don't do documentaries. So I think we had enough of the cast. I think the real get was Diana Muldaur. We got really lucky with her. Denise was terrific. We have Frakes, we have Sir Patrick, we have Michael, we have Gates. So we did okay.
I think obviously who's missing, but there's nothing to have been done. It would have been great to have Michael Piller to
absolutely.
Because he came in when it was still chaos, but he tied a bow and it went from there.
And again, not to plug another one of our documentaries, but in Voyager we have Sean Piller, his son, and Sandra Piller, his widow,
and Jerry Taylor as well. Yep. Her presence was a little missed, but it certainly didn't hurt this documentary. It was wonderful. Really, it gave me chills last night watching it. I was so impressed. And I love the animation. Just fantastic.
Joe will talk about that. But the other thing is that what really frustrated Bill and I, and Joe as an editor, Canada they would not let us make this a full-length documentary. They It's 58 minutes, I think, is total. We had to squeeze so much in. The one complaint we do get is that it hits too fast because there's so much packed in. We had more than enough for a 90-minute documentary. And that's the beauty of the Captain's Collection, which I'll plug, which is all of my Shatner docs, including Chaos, including the full Patrick Stewart, the full Maury Hurley interview. Essentially, every documentary I named on one Blu-ray box set. It's available on Amazon and Shout Factory. So I highly recommend that, because I think Joe and I put the feature of Chaos is almost an hour. We put about another 90 minutes of behind the scenes.
Really?
Yep. Yeah. There was so much stuff in this documentary. The fact that you got Katzenberg and Les Moonves, I really thought those were also great, source information, direct source information.
Yeah.
From the top guys.
Cirroc, we got those in a day. Bill and I, we went to DreamWorks first and then over to CBS Radford for Les Moonves. And Les notoriously allegedly was not much of a Star Trek fan. So that's why you don't really see very much of him. But Jeff Katzenberg was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got him. And I learned so much from
That's all Bill. That's not me. That's Bill.
It's the collective effort of all of you guys determined to make this thing happen. And I thought that you guys really hit the nail on the head. There was so much stuff that flew by. The Patrick Stewart audition with the toupee, I thought was it was gold. And to hear some of the other people that they were considering, the Mitch Ryan, Roy Fiennes, Yaphet Kotto, this is also gemstones, this information. I mean, you could just have a whole extra segment just on that alone. Also, I thought it was great to hear about Lucy Saul-Haney and how her creativity coming up with the first run syndication type hybrid show was instrumental in making this whole thing happen. So that's very clever on her part. And I also thought it was fantastic to know that, again, a woman named Lucy saves the Star Trek franchise.
Yeah.
So this is twice now.
Yes. It's historic.
Cirroc, you owe her a little bit too. I think you know a little bit about first run syndication.
I do. So shout out to Lucy Saul-Haney. I love Lucy in my notes here. But there's just the extra information about Gene's mindset. You mentioned Isaac Asimov came up in here, and the whole humanistic type of movement that was created behind that, and just a little insight onto the ideals that Gene was really sticking towards, and also the evolution of him as a person from being more of the the playboy, getting all the girls type, mindset that he had in his younger age, and then more this kind of, more like Picard in this cerebral type of, standing for principle. And I really like the evolution there that was talked about as well. So I just felt like this gave me so much. The Susan Sackett information. I mean, the Captain Hornblower novel.
That was
suggestion
cool.
To read that book. I just thought you gave us a million things, and this was fantastic and so well done.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I also like the fact that you didn't shy away from when Susan was talking about and Richard Arnold was talking about Gene's drinking and drug use. That you put it out there because we all knew it was going on there, but the public didn't necessarily know that. So I was glad that you didn't shy away from talking about that. But
I hope what came through, and was my struggle in the editing room, and Joe will talk about it, is trying to balance. I did not want to vilify Gene Roddenberry in any way.
Of course not, but you didn't.
No.
Yeah, so that's what we really were very conscious. And that's why the Patrick interviews helped so much too, is because he really liked Gene. Yeah. And that comes through. So yeah, I did not want this to be, let's trash. If it
like a tell-all about his life.
If it weren't for Gene, I wouldn't have a career.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, we all owe a debt of gratitude to Gene. I mean,
yeah,
all of us. So I definitely, with certain kinds of genius comes like a certain kind of, not normal behavior, I would say. And some,
Madness. Genius.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so he was sticking to his guns about certain principles that he thought defined this utopian future. Based on these certain set of principles, which I feel like he did accomplish, and that becomes the underlying legacy of what Star Trek really means, is this idea of this future in which we're all trying to um, coexist, explore, and uplift um, life forms that we interact with. So uh, I really thought this was just so much information, and I wanted to say also, or back to your point about Michael Piller, I didn't realize how instrumental Michael Piller was to being, let's say, the calm on the bridge. Um, and also this gave me a lot more insight into the roles that Rick Berman played um, during those times as well,
Mhm.
kind of trying to mediate and manage so many egos, because it seemed like there was ego on the side of the studios, there was ego on the side of the production, there was a lot of egos going around. And Maurice Hurley comes off of Miami Vice, which is not like a small show. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
And the
so,
Equalizer. Both
and
at
the
the same
Equalizer.
time.
Yeah, so this
Mm-hmm.
is like everybody's coming with a certain level of cachet, and their own background and experience, and it may not directly translate into Star Trek, which Gene has authority over, but still they have great ideas. They are skilled at writing.
Mhm.
They have these their own personal background and experience. And I mean, Lolita, when you're in the middle of uh, this storm as it was going around you, was there a sense that it would eventually calm down and that the dust would settle soon, or did it feel
I,
like on edge all the time?
it was on edge all the time. And as great of a man as Maury was and as talented, that chaos wasn't going to go away until he left. There were too many egos involved and too many power struggles, and just not anybody truly at that point running the writing room. The heart building was in chaos. And it really wasn't until Michael Piller came that there was this, literally, you could feel this kind of calming thing coming. Now you have to remember, Maury Hurley left, then another guy named Michael Wagner came, which wasn't mentioned in this film, which is fine, but he lasted all of 6 weeks, I think, maybe.
We didn't mention him. We mentioned him, but not by name. You're right.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then when Michael Piller came, and then he started bringing in some of these
And
kids.
Ira, right? Because Ira was really was in the room.
Absolutely. Yeah. Michael came in above Ira, but thank God Ira was there. And then once Richard Manning and Hans Beimler and the young Ron Moore came in, things started to kind of go, oh, you could feel it. And it wasn't as chaotic. Where's that script coming from? What's scene 4 going to be? And blah, 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 and you also have to remember at this time, the writers were not using computers, which made this whole chaotic thing
That's
even
nuts.
more insane. So Ira Bear would give me a long legal yellow pad of chicken scratch as a script. And that's initially what I was hired as, to do that initially. It didn't last long.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, they got the writers on to computers. But yeah, so there was just a lot of chaos. And that whole thing I thought was fascinating watching, because by the time I got there in the second season, David Gerald was gone, DC was gone. But I knew about all of that, of course. But for me to hear their stories last night again, which I've heard over the years, was really interesting. And they must have just felt so screwed, really.
And it's really important, everybody at home, for you to know where you can find this documentary. You can get it at shoutfactory.com. They've got a ton of great stuff, including more content that Dave and 455 Films have created. Or you can just go check it out at Amazon.com. You may have heard of that one as well. It's available right here. It's an amazing collection. It's got tons of extended footage and extended interviews. It's got way more. Get it, because by the way, it makes a great gift. You can get it for anybody that you care about or want to convince them that you care about them, or you can get it for yourself because you care about yourself and you've earned it. But we're going to take a super quick break, everybody, and we will be right back with way more coverage of this documentary and the first 2 seasons of Star Trek: The Next Generation. We'll be right back on The Seventh Rule.